Hey everybody, General Scar here, and today I wanted to go over this airship that I've been making. I don't really have anything too specific to go over. I just sort of wanted to talk about like my process of using Houdini building it, because I found that it's very useful. It's very nice and it's very sort of freeing mind-wise about making like mistakes and having to go back because it's all, you know, non-destructive flow with the nodes and stuff like that is really, really nice. So, um, I started making this airship inside of Maya like years ago when I was still in school, and then I got too busy and never really finished it. And I decided to come back to it and, uh, use it as a project to sort of build out, figure out a lot of stuff in Houdini, sort of workflow stuff some more, and just also finish it. This was the plan is that this is going to be inside of a VR chat world, and you'll be able to fully explore the ship. The full layout of which is not complete yet, but I just sort of need to figure out rooms and stuff. But there's just a few things that I like to show you. I mean, like one of the great things about this project is just been sort of the peace of mind, I guess, for using Houdini, which is kind of why I wanted to make this video, is just to talk about this, that like being able to just like change things and not have to worry about it irreparably breaking anything is so nice, and it's like so freeing. Like for Maya, a lot of the times when I was making this, I was like really worried. Like anytime I'm modeling stuff in Maya, I'm always like worried of, you know, am I gonna want to come back to this to change it? Am I gonna want to do this at a later stage? Like especially if it's something like, I don't know, adding bevels to an object is like what stage do I do this at? Because eventually I might want to change this and go back, but I won't be able to, I won't be able to if I've already beveled it. So I was like, always wait until the end or something. But then sometimes you kind of need them, and it's like, I don't know. And also, Maya's booleans are very, very hit or miss in terms of usefulness. There's a lot of times when I've been booleaning stuff and it just like breaks, and so it's nice Houdini. You don't really have to worry about that. Um, I mean, there's ways to get around it for Maya where you can just like cut out stuff already, but being able to just like cut holes and stuff and just do more of a art directed approach, I guess, instead of like a topology first approach is very nice. And then being able to go back and change things like this tavern here, I changed a few times iterating through it, um, and I didn't have to worry about anything. Like I could experiment and try out stuff that works, stuff that doesn't, stuff that I like. A lot of experimentation can happen inside of Houdini that like I don't think can really happen in Maya without you having to duplicate a mesh and save it off somewhere else, or like making a backup file just in case I don't like it, and then you have to go back, and it's so much work. Like especially, I don't know, I feel like this hull I made in Maya, so I made this nice little curve in Maya, just moving vertices. Um, but I didn't want to like mess with anything with it because I didn't know if I was going to be done with it yet. So like for this, for example, I cut a door in here, and I want to cut a bunch of holes in the sides for like portholes so you can get in when you're on the lower decks, you can see outside. Um, but it'll be super easy. I just have to go through and add some booleans and then add the windows, and it's like no problem. Whereas with Maya, I'd have to like wait until I'm really sure that this is the sort of the model, the shape that I want. I keep mentioning Maya, but it's like also sort of Blender, just like because I have a lot of experience with Maya. That's what I sort of learned 3D programming with, or 3D modeling with. So I really like Houdini, I think is mostly what I want to say. I think it's really nice. Just a lot of, even from like a 3D modeling perspective like this, just like being able to build something is actually pretty easy. And I think it's nicer than doing something, in Maya where it's just like a linear sort of progress, I guess. For some things. Some things are a little bit easier in like Maya where they have their workflow and the tools set up around that sort of style of modeling. Or Houdini, you have to do a bit more finagling every now and again, but you know, I like Houdini. How I started it, this is actually, oh, let me actually, there is a node called viewport isolator, and we have to go to parameters, and then we can select a node and then actually just isolate it like this, which is nice. I wish there was a better way of doing it. I'm not exactly sure, so I'm just going to isolate this split node, which is where I'm getting all of my geometry from, and I'm going to move this over to the side. This is what I started with. So this is the one what I had all modeled out in Maya. So I had the hull, I had like an airship dock, just blast those away. And this is the actual airship itself. So I had some basic layout for the top. There's a little tavern area, and then there was going to be rooms up here. There's a hull, and there are different floors under here that you can get to via some cutouts for stairs. But honestly, it's kind of a mess. So basically what I did from this was I just took all the individual elements, I put them in a split, and when you import an object, this was an FBX, it has a lot of neat ways that it groups them. So it groups them by object, and then there's also materials. So if you have different materials on objects, it'll group it by that, so you can split it that way as well, which is nice. But I just searched through this big list of different objects and split out what I needed. So there's the hull, there's the decks, which I'm not sure, I don't know if I ended up actually using this geometry. I might have created my own. There's the balloon, which I mostly just use for reference. The keel at the bottom, tavern layout, all the other layout stuff, small engine, and some wings, which is not named right. Wing split. But yeah, so then I just use that. I put them into outs, into null nodes with out underscore at the start. And then if I show everything, then let's just go into the hull. Just using object import nodes, I imported them into the different nodes. And also I should point out, I'm using a sort of object scope layout here. If you don't know, I'm sort of still learning this, figuring it out and everything. But basically this is Houdini's hierarchy system effectively. So if I export this out to FBXs, everything that's like connected is basically a child. So it's their sort of version of a tree hierarchy, but it's a little bit different, and it's a bit, can get a bit messy because everything's nodes and they have to be connected. But basically you can see we have the hull as the base object, and then if we go to the decks, that's parented under that, and then we can go over to deck 1, which is parented under the decks. This one is just an empty object, just like a null parent thing. And deck 1 has all these under their children, like the tavern has these under their children. So it's just sort of the parenting system. So let's go back to the hull, and I just start with this object merge. And this is just sort of the general workflow of all the different pieces. And I actually used a lot of poly splits. There was a lot of manual stuff I had to do here to get this to work. So I wanted to merge this top bit and this bottom bit because they weren't connected properly. So I did a lot of poly splits to get this topology, editing to get objects merged together, different faces. This whole part's flat, so this topology looks really weird, but it doesn't really matter because it's just perfectly flat. Let's see. Yeah, so I got all this connected, cut it in half, mirrored it, and then I extruded it a little bit, reverse and normals. And then I have two normal nodes here. This normal node is actually selective. I have a certain, specific edges that I wanted to add different normals to, because as you can see here, that's not a sharp edge, and at the bottom here, that's not a sharp edge, and I wanted them to be sharp edges. So I just used another normal node, selected those edges, and added a different angle. Yeah, but then from there, what else have we got here? We've got the center of mass and center points. I use those for placing the balloon. The forward deck. Oh yeah, this is an extra deck that I added. So I just took like a grid and I booleaned inside of this to get the shape. And then some splits and facets. The facets to remove inline points. Because when I boolean it, there's a bunch of stuff whenever there's like an edge loop or something. So using a facet, I can get straight lines again. And then clip and mirror just to make sure it's equal, and I can get that line down the middle, and then divide to get this nice fan. There is one of the decks you can see up here called the forward deck, where it's this big glass dome in the front with this baleen. And to get that was actually pretty simple. So if I go back into the hull, you can see I have a group here that's just selecting these faces that I wanted to delete, and then I split them out. So we have the normal hull here, Let me isolate this again on one side, and then the hull for the glass on the other side. I do poly bridges to connect the edges. These are manually selected. I might be able to figure out a way to do it procedurally, but yeah. This is a door boolean, so I have like a door shape that's just a generalized shape for what size a door is going to be. So they're going to be prefabs inside of Unity basically, and I can just slot them in wherever. And then some cleanup, dividing, colors, UVs. Then an output. Yeah. And then so for the forward deck, also pretty simple. I added this little ridge around the ends here. So I took in the glass, and then the glass itself I put on a material, and then I merged it with another thing where I blasted the edges. I extruded them out a little bit to make them go down, and then I reversed the faces and then extruded them out again to make them go out. So just some clever extruding to give a little wooden border around this glass to give it a transition into the hull instead of just sort of being glass and then being wood again. And then the baleen itself is actually pretty interesting. So I merge in the glass, and I'm going to boolean it with a bunch of grids that I've copied in a line here at a spacing to get a curve, basically. I use a shrink wrap here. I use a lot of shrink wraps, actually, in this project. Basically to get a full shape of the glass dome to boolean it so I can get a full thick piece of full plane, I guess. Facet it to remove inline points. It's just an option on there. And then I convert them to lines. I have a group bounding box just to get rid of these, to select these top lines here. And when I blast them, it'll remove basically all the points connected to those lines, and then the lines connected if needed as well. So you can see that it just has these top ones, but like this line and these back lines will also get blasted in the process. And then I convert it to a polypath so I can stick it into a curve node where it'll sort of smooth it out for me. And then I resample it to get a nice even spacings. And then I stick it into another curve node to get another kind of resampling to just give it or a bit more smoothness. And then I resample it once again. And then I put it through a polywire to give it geometry. And then I clip the top and I clip the back so they're not sticking out. And then I just mirror it, add normals, colors. And the polywire does some UVs. I'll probably go back and change these to something a little bit better. But that's the baleen, which I thought was pretty cool. The rigging here, these little planes on the going over the balloon and this rope are going to sort of, well, the rope's going to have a rope texture. These planes here are going to have a rigging texture. So like rope tied in squares and knots and stuff like that. And to make it was actually pretty cool. So I'll just go through here. Both of these are using a similar technique, just sort of like in a different orientation, I guess. So we bring the hull from our original split object, and we also take in the balloon. We merge those together here. And then for this one over here, we add the keel as well. Oh, and the offset balloon. But I'll go over that in a minute. So this is basically, so we shrink wrap it so we can get a nice tight convex hull. I poly extruded it just a tiny bit so that this isn't like Z-fighting or overlapping the original models, just so it's like laying on top of it basically. So I'm going to clip the bottom, I'm going to clip the right, and I'm going to clip the left to basically get this strip. And this strip is going to be a single rigging bit that I can just sort of move and adjust as I want. So then I UV layout with a flatten and then a layout, and then I transform it twice and then merge it so that it's in two different spots. So I have 2 pieces of geometry there, then I add a material to it, and that's basically that one. So for this one, it's pretty similar. I merge in the keel, the hull, and the balloon that I've shifted over to the left just to make it feel a bit more balanced. And then I shrink wrap that again. This is different shrink wrap because balloon's a different position and you can see the hull or the keel also affecting it. Then I poly extrude it again just a little bit. And then I take a grid, very large grid, and I Boolean it with that so I get this overall just cross section of the balloon, of the airship. And then I convert it to a line and I blast some points down here. Basically these points are where it's connecting to the keel. So if I do this, you can see it's connecting there and it's connecting there. And so that's the rope that's just going around the whole thing. Then polypath to turn it into a path again so I can sweep along it and it'll do a nice solid sweep. And I'm doing 2 sweeps here at 90-degree angles to each other. So that's just down here in the rotation, you can set the roll and you can like spin it. So I just have that at 90. So I get a nice little cross around the whole thing. So basically when I have a rope texture on there, hopefully it'll look decent enough that it'll look like a rope just with these 2 planes intersecting each other. So I don't have to have a lot of geometry for like a round tube the whole way, but I could switch it to a tube pretty easily if I need to. Then I merge those together, use a texel density node. The UVs don't show up after you've applied materials to them, I found out. It's like here you can see UVs, but when you apply the material you can't, which is a little bit meh, but and then an output. So that's that. And then I just sort of want to talk about the walls as well, because I have a couple different ways of placing walls. So I'm just going to turn off the rigging and the balloon here so we can just see down. And I'll go to deck 1, open this up, I think. No, go to the Tavern. Where's that one? Here. So I had a general layout at first. I think I have that note here still. This was basically the layout from the Maya file. And then I've decided to go through a bunch of different stuff and change it. I ended up deciding to snap everything sort of to a grid so that it can just fit nicer, I guess. It's a little bit more satisfying, I guess. But there's a couple different ways that I'm actually making these walls. The first one in here is through curves. So here's this back wall that has a bit of an angle to it. And I basically just like sweep a line up to get the wall. And then I extrude it to get the thickness that I want. And I reversed it here so that it goes out in this direction instead of in the other direction, because that's just where I wanted it to go. And then I do a similar thing here, except I take a grid and then I sweep it and then I blast the walls that I don't want, and then I reverse it so it goes in the direction I want, and then I poly extrude it. Eventually, and some of the things I've decided is a little bit easier if I'm just going to do a box, is instead of using a sweep node with a line, I could just use a poly extrude and then just not have the top and bottom faces, and you get basically the same thing. I'll show you that in a little bit. There's a couple of other rooms that use that. So here's the basic wall layout, and then over here I have a bunch of booleans for doors and windows, basically. Again, I have a selection of objects over here for door shapes that I'm just putting outs here, and then for stair shapes as well. So the stair shape is down here. We have the shape of the stair, but I also just have a general box that the stair fits inside of, and I'm using this to cut holes in the different hulls to allow for stairs, because stairs are also going to be like a prefab in Unity. So I'm just going to stick those in and have it work like that, similar to the doors. But so here I have a bunch of, well, that's the hull. I want the Tavern. bunch of doors, whatever I want cut holes into, and I boolean them into the different walls. And I'm doing this in a for loop instead of just like booleaning them straight like this. I guess it'd be like this. Because when you do it this way, I'm just gonna blast these away. You'll notice that it like cuts a hole in the side of this object here because they're next to each other, and because they're next to each other, I guess it booleans them together slightly and just leaves this crease, which I didn't want. Also, cool tip, if you hit M or you come up to the right to the top of the view window in Houdini and click on this button, you can go into a first person mode, which is really nice. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just delete that. So I boolean them, and then I clip them so I get rid of the bottom faces basically, and then divide them. One thing I do still need to do here, I want to go in and add little cuts, like little slices in the geometry, just so that like these topology for the doors isn't all and getting all squished. Like you can see some of these, it's got really, really terrible topology. Where like there's just like really thin lines all over the place. It's not good. I need to go through and fix that eventually. Once I get the layout and everything done, I'm going to go and clean it up like that. Let's see, for the bar and then the stair walls here actually. So the stairs are similar to the line and the sweep with the curve. I just do it a little bit shorter so you can sort of see over them. So they're low walls. And then the bar I sort of just modeled by hand. That's probably going to get replaced at some point by something better. And then go through, UV map it and everything. And the texel density, I want all my UVs on this thing to have the same texel density. So that's all the UVs have that node at least. Yes, and then let's see, captain's quarters probably. Let's see, which one of these has the box where I extrude it? Here, yeah. So here's a this is actually a little bit different. So we take a grid. Let me actually just isolate this one. And I poly extrude it to get sort of this box shape. And I boolean it with the hull, the more or less completed hull, so that I can actually get a wall that matches up with the shape of the hull. So then I blast away the outside objects, reverse the faces, and then extrude it in to give it some thickness. And then I boolean that with some door shapes that I merge in up here. There's a lot going in. This node graph is a little bit messy. So let's see. Blast the sides. So when I extrude it, I can actually get the extrude side, because you're not going to be able to see these sides. There's a top to it, and these are on the sides of the ship. So you won't actually be able to see inside. So there's no point in having these there. You can just save some geometry there. So when I extrude it, I output a group for the sides. And down here, I just blast that group and get rid of it all. Very nice. Some divide here, just to make sure it's no n-gons, basically. Let's see, what's this one? Oh, these are just cubes and stuff for loft areas. Let's see, simple balcony. I took a grid, blasted the back, poly beveled the edges, and just added a color. And then what else is here? Oh, this is just a wall. I just took a grid and extruded it. I probably could have used a box, but whatever. Then one final divide to make sure everything's done. UV unwrapped. I did not add a texel density node here. Let me do that. Texel density. And I have a preset here, which I think is actually incorrect. I think I actually want it like this. Yeah. Basically, when it's set up like this, every UV is inside like a 1 by 1 meter space. effectively. So in this case, the textures are going to be like 1K by 1K. So every meter is going to have a 1K texture. But I need to go back and fix that because the texture I was using to test it with had some scaling on it, so it looked bigger than it was supposed to, or smaller than it was supposed to, or something. But let's see, clear this. But yeah, effectively just using all those sort of techniques, building out walls, booleaning them with the holes so that I can get the shapes against them. This one has like a lot of copy points. Like I just take this wall section and then I copy it here. And here you can see I did sort of the plain cut a line into the wall so you get the cleaner topology with the doors here. As opposed to, oh, I haven't divided that one apparently. Let me see if I can find one that looks really bad. Yeah, this one's not great. You can see there's a line from all the way over here coming over to the left corner, and you just get all these little tiny triangles in this bit here. It's not great. So I need to go through and fix that. Yeah, but all right, so yeah, that's overview of the airship. Just wanted to sort of show some stuff off that I've been working with, some modeling philosophies, I guess, of just, you know, workflow inside of Houdini. I just really like it. It's a lot of fun. It's really nice to be able to not have to worry about breaking things. I can just go back and change it. One thing, this whole project is actually kind of based off of a single old file. So if that file gets broken, this whole thing could go to pieces. So I need to find a way to sort of solidify that a bit more, but it's in my Git. I got it on a GitHub, so if it breaks, I can just fix it that way. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Yeah.